What's going on, everybody? I'm Ricky.
And I'm Angel, and welcome to the Undefiled Podcast, where we're all about reclaiming Christian sexuality. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the upcoming content that we will have for you. So, what we getting into today?
I'm excited about today's episode. I'm excited about today's podcast. We are doing a podcast titled Never Eat Alone. I'm very excited about this conversation. Here for the Comments has been going great. For those of you who know about Here for the Comments, we're going to keep that going. Whenever we do Here for the Comments, the biggest thing that we really want to get is your feedback and your collective thoughts on the topics that we bring. The whole point of us doing, I think, this podcast is we really want to connect with people and create a community of people who are on the same journey as we are. We're not marriage experts. We're not relationship experts. But we're two people who love each other and who are seeking to make their relationship go to the highest level it can possibly go. We want to be as undefiled as we possibly can. And we just believe that there are other couples out there who want the same thing. And so in our endeavor to chase that together and to not do it alone, this is where Undefiled came from. We want to create a community of people who are on the same journey. We are a collection. We are a body of students, man, learning together. And that's the thing about relationships. You can't ever stop learning.
Yeah, you got to always be a student.
You have to keep learning. And so in today's episode, one of the things that we're going to be talking about is redefining the idea that our drive, our desire, our intimacy, that these habits are not a one-way street. It is not a one-way street. It is, our intimacy life is a group project. And so like the real question is like, I think what we're asking today is like, when it comes to intimacy and how you think about it, is it me or is it we?
Right.
And I think that's the premise of you know how we got to do this thing. And so never eat alone. When we think about that topic, why do we have that topic, never eat alone? Because here's the setup. Dramatic pause. Imagine if you guys are planning to have a meal together, and like for instance, like for most of us, we're like, hey, what we're gonna eat, and we have a conversation about what we're gonna eat as we're going to the store and as we're planning to get. We're like, hey, what we gonna eat? What foods do we want? Matter of fact, we did this yesterday. We sat down in the car and we figured out what we was gonna eat, and we planned dinner, right? And it's like as we're planning this meal and as we're planning this dinner, we know, okay, tonight at 7 p.m. we're gonna eat. We're gonna have dinner, and like, how would it be for we get to 7 p.m., I show up, come to the house, dinner's ready to go, we both sit down, and it's like, babe, you like, baby, we're going to eat? And I'm like, I already ate.
Yeah, like I really think it's no bigger betrayal than finding out that your spouse ate without you, especially if it's something good. When they eat without you, it's like, well, like, dang, you ain't even think about me.
And the attitude, like, you gotta think about even down to like yesterday morning. I woke up yesterday morning, and I woke up smelling bacon in the house. I woke up smelling bacon. You had been cooking some bacon. I was like, bacon. Was there? You know how you wake? I woke up. Bacon. I said, babe, did you like my eyes won't even open yet. I said, babe, did you cook?
Those were literally his first words to me. Did you make me some?
I said, you make me some? And I said it like, did you make me some? Did you make me some?
Like
and
a
what'd you
baby.
say?
I said no, but I can go make you some.
No, you didn't make me none. I said no, it's too late because you already did it by yourself.
But y'all, here's the thing: he don't even like bacon. That's just a side note. He don't even like bacon
wasn't
like
the point.
that.
That wasn't the point. You know, I have a very, very short window. Like I wake up every morning, I want breakfast for 5 seconds. But if it's not ready in that 5 seconds, then I'll wait for lunch and I don't eat breakfast. But the point is it's almost like there was a meal that we communicated. Or that we had an expectation that we were going to have together, and one of us shows up to the table saying, I already ate. You almost feel like a betrayal.
You do.
Because it's like, I thought we were going to eat together. Like, I thought this was going to be, like, the expectation and communication was that we are going to have this meal together. And it's like, I have to realize I have to be more concerned. I have to be more considerate for you if throughout the day, I got to tell myself, Ricky, don't go to McDonald's. Don't go to Burger King. Don't go to Chick-fil-A. Don't go to Jersey Mike's. Don't go to any of these places because you know you got to have dinner with your wife later. And it's like I have to be disciplined throughout the day to make sure if I am saving myself for the meal that we're gonna have together, like especially if it's a good meal, like if it's like some grilled steak,
Right.
and some like potatoes and some veggies or whatever your meal is, like I have to remind myself there's a good meal that I'm gonna have with my girl later. And so like it's okay if I'm a little hungry right now.
Right.
Because it's gonna be a good meal later. And I think that's the premise of what we're talking about with never eat alone. In our intimacy life, in our sex life, we made a commitment to eat together. Like that, when we got married, what we're saying in theory, the vision behind never eat alone is that when you say I do to a person, like I'm your guy and you're my girl, like one of the things that we are agreeing to is that we're gonna eat together.
Right. And when you say I do, it's almost like in an instant, your mindset has to change because you're no longer just a me. You're now a we. You're a part of a unit that is supposed to move and make decisions and travel together. And so when you do eat by yourself, you're like leaving your partner behind. You're missing out on an opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem with having a too self-focused mentality. When you get into a relationship. Now, hear me, I'm not saying that we're supposed to be losing ourselves in our relationship, but what I am saying is our intention to experience intimacy, the driving intention behind our intimacy life is we're going to do it together.
Right.
Like that's the focus, that's the mindset is, and we understand the way God gave it to us. It was created for us to experience together. Like the drive that I have, what God gave me, my body, like it wasn't just like you can, just by design alone, you can tell this supposed to go in something.
Right.
Like just by design alone, like, you know, like when you look at yourself, you're like, something's supposed to go in here.
Right.
And it's like God gave us to each other. So he was like, look, he's got the piece that you missing and she's got the piece that you missing. And when y'all put it together, like something beautiful happens. And so I realized like that's why we have to fight for always having and this is just our code, our culture code of our marriage,
right,
is that one of the things that we have set up in our marriage, one of the codes that we live by, one of the foundational culture codes that we live by our marriage is never eat alone.
Right.
Like that's a golden rule for us. We do not eat alone. Do you feel like that's something all married couples should have?
I definitely do. I think that sometimes you can be doing a disservice to your partner when you engage on a self journey like that. Like when you eat by yourself, you're not really considering what your spouse might need, and you're not really considering what their desires might be.
Right.
You're only thinking about your need in that moment. You know what I mean? You're only thinking about like, I have something pent up that I need to let out.
Right.
And in those moments, we're supposed to go to our spouse in those moments. We're supposed to be open and comfortable enough to share those moments. Yeah. But oftentimes I think that we come into a relationship, and because we have embarked on a intimacy journey on our own for so long, we have a set definition of what we think will like get us there. Right,
like a set definition, like a set mindset. Like one of the things I think that hurts, shared intimacy, one of the things that I believe that hurts a marriage is when I come into the relationship and I never switched. I never did the switch in my mind where my sensitivity, my behaviors, and my actions, they are still not catering to the shared journey.
Right.
Where I still think like I have to be very careful. I have to be very careful not to platform my pleasure over our pleasure.
Or my pleasure as the ultimate pleasure.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like I have to be very careful not to put my pleasure or platform my pleasure over our pleasure. So when I think about intimacy, I can't keep coming into this thing only thinking about what I like. Like at some point, I feel like it has to get to the point where I stop back. I don't just ask myself what I like, but I got to be as equally concerned about what do we like.
Right.
What's enjoyable, not just for me, but what's enjoyable for us? Because I think there's a myth. Tell me, do you agree with this? Like, you spoke on this before, that myth about, like, this is the only way it works for me. Is it okay to take that from people? Like, can people have that? Where it's like, I've been in my body for a while. I've been me for a while. I know what, I know my 2 + 2 = 4. I know my equation. I know my makeup. This is how it works for me. This is what because I think this also limits people. And when they're trying to express things or try things or experiment with things, like it's very hard to, like, it's one of the things we talked about early on in our relationship. Remember when we got married and I was like, babe, I want you to try stuff. And sometimes like you would have, like, not to put you out there, but to put you out there, sometimes you would have like an initial, like, I don't like that. And I'm like, how do you know?
Right.
Like what? And that's what I'm saying. Like, what is it with that? Like, I feel like it's a myth where it's like, this is the only way it works.
I agree. I think it's a myth. But I think because we are often married to ourselves more than we're married to our partner, sometimes we put that, like that mindset, like it feels so permanent. And I get it. It's hard to separate your own personal and selfish desires for a collective thing, because especially if you've never had an example or nobody's ever talked to you about like the functions between man and wife and like how that's supposed to work. If you haven't had like an example of that, it's hard to unlearn that selfishness because I'm not gonna lie.
Like I know we keep throwing that. Like I don't want nobody to be triggered by the word selfish, but but like here's what we mean. Like I think it's a place where desire can be separate, but the point that it becomes selfish is when I refuse to compromise it or be willing to change it in any way, shape, or form to accommodate what we are and what we now have together.
Right.
Like that's when a separate desire can become a selfish desire.
Right.
It's when it's like, it's non-negotiable. Like this is what it is.
Right. Like this is what I like.
Right. And I'm not changing it. And I think that's the challenge of every relationship. That's the challenge of having a great intimacy life. That's the challenge of a sex life. How do we take, even like the word that we use, my sex drive. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to turn our sex drive. How do we turn 2 sex drives into 1 intimacy trip? Right. How do we turn 2 drives into 1 trip? And that is where sacrifice, that is where communication, that is where understanding, that is where being open-minded, and that's really where being willing to change and adapt comes into play.
Right, because let's be honest, when we're stuck in that it's my way or the highway type vibe, we don't really leave room for growth. Like, and in a marriage and in a relationship, you're supposed to be growing together. There's a collective thing that you're acquiring together. And so when you don't have that, like a lot of the times you're not leaving room for growth. And there is, your things can change for you.
I mean, just think about it.
Area.
You have to take 2 drives into 1 trip, but you got to recognize, like, let's not act like just because we're in this relationship doesn't mean I haven't had my own journey. I haven't had my own experiences. Like there's some things I have to ask myself, what have I collected or learned on my individual drive? What has made me who I am? What's made me tick the way that I tick? What makes me respond to what I respond to? I think for anybody's intimacy to be at full bloom, there has to be a full understanding of self.
Right.
I got to know who I am. I got to know what I like. I got to know what I don't like. I got to know all the experiences that I've had over my life. Like, I can't just forget about it and say, now that we married, none of that matters. That's not the case.
That's not how it works.
A lot of that stuff follows you into it. So I really do have to evaluate and ask myself on my individual drive, what have I collected along the way?
Right.
Like, what have I learned along the way? And then I have to ask this next question for if my priority, if the focus is us being the priority now, not me being the priority, but us. If our pleasure is now the goal, then I have to ask myself with what I've collected and what I've gained over my individual drive, I need to evaluate it, put it all on the table and says, what do I need to keep and what do I need to toss?
Right.
What helps us? What hurts us? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like what's healthy and what's not healthy. And I think, is it fair, babe? Do you think it's fair to tell a person, like, does it sound like I'm saying you got to forsake who you are as an individual and totally become focused on you guys as a unit? That, like, I want to make sure I'm not making it sound like what you want and what you desire doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it sounds like. But I totally understand that, especially as a woman and like as a stay-at-home mom, that's really something that I see a lot in the culture. We talk about, not losing ourselves in our marriage and having our own things, like the whole conversation of having outside friends and, you know, having your own life. But I do think sometimes we put that above our spouse. Yeah. And I think, to me personally, I think it comes from like the push of culture. Mm-hmm. Culture tells us, especially as a woman, I can't speak on a man's perspective, but as a woman, culture says a lot about what we should and should not do. Yeah. Like I remember when we were getting married, at my bridal shower, I got a little pink box.
Oh, I remember this.
We read through these. It was a little pink box, and it had a whole bunch of notes from the women that were at my party, you know, giving me advice, you know, all kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of them was like, girl, have you an account on the side because you never know, you know, what he gonna do. I had some that said, if you ever need a place to stay, my couch is always available. Yeah, and I was reading these notes like, why are y'all giving me this at my bridal shower? Like, what have y'all been through? Like, what have y'all been through to write this at somebody's bridal shower?
Like, what is this trauma advice?
Right.
Like, are y'all trying to tell us something bad about to happen?
Right. Like, I didn't even know what to think about it. Yeah. And so, like, when a lot of women have that mindset that we have to keep our identity over the identity of myself and my marriage, I think that's when it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah. And I think it comes from failing to realize we are traveling together now. Mm-hmm. I'm not driving by myself no more. Right. We're traveling together now. So the way that I got used to being by myself and traveling by myself, if I really love you, and this is when you know you really love a person, is when a person becomes worth you inconveniencing yourself for, that's when you know it's love. Yeah. When I'm willing to do stuff and consider stuff that I wouldn't initially reach for, that's when I know you get into my heart, because now I'm changing some of my routines and practices for the sake of us being able to travel together. And I want to travel with you so bad that I'll adjust what I'm individually used to make our trip together more successful. Right. And all of that in general, that makes a relationship better. But imagine if you take that mindset into your intimacy life. Imagine if you take that posture when it comes to how you all seek pleasure together. That I'm not just gonna do it the way that, you know, 2 rubs, 1 lick, 1 stick, and I'm there. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to open myself up to recognize, for us to travel together successfully, I may have to look at this thing differently. Right. I may have to humble myself. Right. And I may have to humble myself. Yeah, I may have to humble myself and say, like, while I think I'm great and while I think I can do it this way, or while I think I can do it that way,
go ahead.
Especially if I'm taking data from trips I've taken before I was with the one I'm with now. True. And I try to use the same things I've learned on other trips with our shared trip. That's the quickest way to find myself being kicked out the car. Yeah. Because now I'm not traveling together. Now I'm trying to make you fit into a trip I've already taken without you. True. Like, this is a new trip that we're taking together, and our marriage is a beautiful thing. And now we're in this car together. And like, while we're using the analogy of a car, it's still like, I don't know how y'all are at home. Y'all tell me how it is. Our most trying times are in the vehicle. It's in the car. Oh God, I think that car be testing our salvation. I
think it's a demon in car drives.
I promise you, I can't. I feel like it's principalities.
It's principalities
over travel, because it's crazy. But it's like, we have to ask ourselves: am I putting my individual desires over our collective desires? Right. How far is too far? And I have to ask myself, because I don't want to go to the point where I'm not saying, like, at one point, I don't want honoring our intimacy to mean I neglect my intimacy, because that's equally as damaging.
It is.
I'm not saying, oh, babe, whatever you want, no, however you like it, however you like. We don't. I really do think the bedroom is the worst place for a yes person. Yeah, like, babe, how you want? Oh, however you want. Like, a part of what drives me is for you to communicate to me, girl, what do you want? Right. How do you want? Like, I'm interested in that. And if it's always, babe, whatever you like, babe, whatever you want, I'm like, that's, because then it puts all the pressure on me. Right. I'm like, no, like, we both have to collectively bring, and that's what I'm saying. We're not saying abandon your desire. Yeah. The beautiful thing is we both bring our desires together to create this powerful, strong, connected desire.
Yeah.
That now it's like, I'm bringing what I want, she's bringing what she wants, and now it becomes what we want.
Right.
And there's a freaking beauty in that.
It's a freedom in that, man. It opens you up to almost like a whole new world of possibilities because now you're having consideration for each other.
Yeah.
You're hearing his desires, you're hearing her desires, and you're coming together like, ooh, let's try this. It gives you a bit of freedom, and to me, it gives excitement.
And on the flip side of it, when that's not the case, and when you don't have the posture, this is a shared journey, and when you don't have the posture that I know what I like, I know what it's supposed to be, now you're going to come into the experience like waiting to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be how you've communicated to be or how you've opened yourself up to allow it to be. And now what's supposed to be like a shared trip is now like a journey. It's like a journey of torture now.
Right.
Or your confidence isn't where it needs to be, because there's nothing like doing something that you're not getting everything you want to out of it and you feel like you're stuck in it. And I don't know if anybody feels like that, like in their journey with intimacy, that I want to make sure, like, for us to be able to eat together, we've got to learn how to curate the experience where both of us are getting what we want out of it. That I can't just, so I don't want to skate this over. Like I'm saying, you got to abandon what you want. You got to abandon what you like. No, if anything, to have a strong intimacy, I'm going to say this word right.
You got it, baby. Go
I'm
ahead.
going to say this word right.
I believe in you.
To have a strong intimacy life. There we go. In your marriage, you have to be at the height of your own self-awareness.
Oh, yeah.
To have a strong intimacy life with your spouse, you have to be at the height of your own self-awareness. I need to be aware of who I am, so that as we are creating things together, I think most people haven't been taught how to communicate what they want.
Right.
And would you agree?
I 100% agree, because I know for me, that was my struggle. Like a whole moment of transparency in our relationship. Ricky has always been the one to be able to communicate his feelings and communicate his needs, while I'm like a little turtle. I go in my shell and I hold my feelings and my emotions to myself. So for me, that was the turning point for our marriage. Of course, it came through counseling and me realizing a lot of the inability to share my needs and desires and concerns or whatever it may be. A lot of that came from my childhood stuff. And I didn't take that into consideration coming into my marriage. And so now when we get into the topic of our intimacy, I didn't know how to tell him what I needed. And I also didn't know how to hear what he was telling me. Yeah. I always put my own spin on his words or his actions or his, you know what I mean? Like his, whatever it may have been, I put my own thought bubbles on it.
Okay. Yeah. I got you. And I think that's the point of us having a commitment to never eat alone. With that is the understanding that if we're not going to eat alone, we're going to be eating together. And if we're going to be eating together, then we're going to be planning together. Yeah. We're going to be cooking together. Like it's going to be, we understand now, I'm not doing this by myself. I'm not doing this by myself. And so if I'm not doing something by myself, I don't get to be disappointed about anything I haven't communicated yet. And a lot of times, I know for me, that's what I found was happening. When you are committed to doing something together, there's a way that you have to do it together. When you're committed to having intimacy together, there's a way that you have to do it together. And some of us may be in the place where, why is it that you don't want to eat together? That would be my question for married people, is that never eat alone. If you have a problem with that statement, never eat alone, I don't know about that. My question to you would be, why wouldn't you want to eat together? My question is, why aren't you hungry? Yeah. Like if I, like going back to the analogy, if we have a meal that we plan together and then like we've had expectation, you've thought about it all day, you've been preparing yourself for it all day, all the little things texting, I can't wait to see you. And here I am on my own, drinking sweet tea and eating French fries all day. And then I get to our meal together and you notice, because you can't hide when you're not that hungry.
That's 100% true.
And you ain't gonna go but so far with eating out of consideration and compassion. Now, you know, if she cooked, I'ma eat. Like for me, my wife knows that's the worst way to come to the table and I'm using that metaphor to talk about bedroom. That's the worst way to come to the table. Like one of the things that I've had to share with her over the years, like, babe, it's not just what you do for me, but it's also how you offer what you do for me. It's like for instance, here's an example. Babe, you want a hot dog?
Yeah, I mean, I could eat.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, when you put it like that, nobody want that.
No, nobody want it at all.
Like, I want you to put that thing on a gold platter. I want you to have flowers on that thing. I want you to have music playing and change that to like, babe, you want a hot dog? You know?
God, I've been craving a hot dog all day.
Like, turn it, like, make it something that I would want. And I think what happens is, like, if we were planning all day to eat together and I get to the meal and I'm not hungry, a party is going to be like, wait, why aren't you hungry?
Right.
A party is going to be like, and questioning like, why we supposed to have this meal together?
Right. What did you spoil your appetite on?
What did you spoil your appetite on? And for anybody who is finding themselves, I feel like, not wanting to eat with your spouse, if you're finding intimacy to being challenged with your spouse, I think there's some work that's got to be done, because somewhere along the line, you've lost your appetite.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, I feel like too many aren't hungry for the meal because they've already eaten before they come to the table. Mm-hmm. And I've got to make sure when I'm married, I have to make sure, am I saving myself for the meal that we are having together, or am I already eating before I get to the table? Mm-hmm. And if I'm already eating before I get to the table, I have to understand I'm robbing my spouse of a shared experience.
Right.
And until I see it like that, I'll never have a problem with it. Because let's be honest, would you agree with this? Sometimes it's easier to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Sometimes we have that mindset when the desire or the need for release is so strong. It seems like the easy way out to pleasure ourselves, or to, get what we need and then keep going on with our day.
Especially when you are in a dynamic where the drives aren't compatible. Mm-hmm. Especially if it's a dynamic where my drive is higher than your drive. Like in our dynamic, my drive is so much higher than your drive. And so that's the challenge that I have to constantly remind myself is, if my drive is way higher than hers, that's simply going to mean I'm going to want it way more than she's going to want it.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that she don't want me. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's not attracted to me. And so I have to silence all those insecurities. I have to silence all those disappointments. I have to understand you are wired to want it more. That's just how, like, for me, wake up, I want it. Like it's always there. And I have to maintain a strong consideration for us over me.
Right.
Even in that, because I have to make sure, like, I can't, because if I get in the habit of making sure I satisfy myself every time I want it, when it gets time to doing things for us, you won't be worth the sacrifice.
Right. Ooh.
You won't be worth it. Ooh. Because I've trained myself to always give me what I want when I want it.
Right.
And so I'm training myself to sabotage sacrifice.
Right.
And that doesn't help our shared experience.
And then on the flip side of that, you also have to evaluate the things that are taking your appetite away. Like, do you have an unhealthy relationship with your sex drive or with sex in general? Like, is it like some past trauma that may be associated with it? Is it,
for sure.
Something like maybe your health, something might be going on with your health, because all of that affects your drive and your need for desire and release. All of that can attribute to it. So, like, if there's trauma there that you haven't shared with your spouse might be thinking that you just don't want them.
Man, that's so good. Like, if there's a reason why,
if it's a reason
you don't want to eat together that has nothing to do with him, I feel like it would be the most wisest thing you could do is to be upfront and say, hey, there's some things that have happened. And that's the thing about it. Sometimes when I say when you're not eating together as a couple, something is taking your appetite. Sometimes life takes your appetite.
God knows it does.
Like, sometimes things happen, like there are traumas, health, like life in general. We have to understand we are trying to put our lives together. That don't mean it's going to be easy. And that don't mean there not going to be days where we're going to be challenged. There's not going to be days where we're going to be confronted with things. Some of you may be in a season right now where you're bearing loved ones. You might have just lost a parent. Yeah. Like different things, health scares, health diagnoses, children issues, whether behavior issues or a health issue with the child. I mean, there's a list of things that can rob you of your appetite. And all we're saying is you need to be able to identify when something is affecting your appetite, and you need to be able to communicate it. Like, hey, I'm not eating with you right now. Here's why. But to just say I already ate, like, it needs to be an explanation for why.
Right.
There should always be an explanation for why you're not hungry.
There needs to be an explanation. And then there also needs to be sensitivity, because sometimes it takes us a while to learn how to communicate the things that are going on with us. And so, like, I'm a huge advocate for therapy and counseling, because sometimes the things that we need to say don't come out until we're in a shared experience in therapy.
With somebody qualified who knows how to get that out of us.
Right. But there needs to be sensitivity and understanding that what she or he might be feeling might not have anything to do with me.
Yeah, but I still need to be mature enough and be emotionally strong enough to validate your experience.
Right.
And to say, man, while I don't really like what it's doing to us, like, I see you and I see what you're going through and I see how that's affecting you. And I got to have grace and understanding for that. And that's what happens. So, like, sometimes when you lose your appetite, sometimes you lose your appetite because of life, because of trauma. But then there are times where I lost my appetite because I gave it away.
Because you went to McDonald's first.
Because I chose, right, because I instead of waiting for the meal, I went with fast food. And, like, that's where I'm getting to this reality where I'm starting to realize it's a big statement. Some people might not like this. Some people might get mad at me when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I believe that solo sex is selfish.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's selfish.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want about it. You can kind of dress up however you want to feel about it. It's selfish because when I'm doing it, it's only in focus of me. It's not in focus of us. And I realized one thing I agreed to when I got married is, babe, I'm saving my appetite for the meal that we're going to have together.
So, question, what would you say to the person who may use materials to warm themselves up for the meal?
What do you mean by that? I need more context.
So there is a culture I've seen on, like, TikTok and whatnot where some people might take a moment before they approach their main meal, their main sexual experience, to warm themselves up, like whether it's through, porn or something else that might get them there, but they don't necessarily release, but they come to the moment hotter.
Why can't that happen together? What is it that your spouse doesn't have that you have to do alone to get yourself to go back with them and do something together? Like, it almost doesn't make sense. It's almost like you and I go to a restaurant, we sit down to eat, and I'm going to say, man, I'm going to go across the street, get an appetizer at this restaurant before our meal get here.
Or I'm going to go smell the food so I can get my appetite up.
Like, no, it's just like, why would I leave the experience that we have together? Because, hey, you stay here, I'm going to go get some fries. And I'm going to eat these fries so I can be really hungry when our food get here. In the same way that wouldn't make sense. I think it's an excuse for us to stay selfish, honestly. And I think it's something that we have to understand that if we're going to eat together, I think it also may be a result of somebody who's probably not getting what they need. And who probably feel like they don't have a voice in the experience.
Yeah.
That they're constantly having to give and they're never receiving anything. And that's valid if you feel that. And maybe the way that you're going about it is incorrect, but you need to confront what you feel. Because every person needs to be validated in a shared experience.
Yeah.
What you want matters and what I want matters.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. How do we get to the point where we never eat alone? That's the point. How do we be goal-oriented and goal-focused? I think the way that we get to the point that we never eat alone is simple. We set the menu.
Yeah. It's something you talk about. You plan.
Right.
You let your intentions be known.
And I think be careful when we're saying we got to take our 2 drives and turn it into one intimacy trip. We have to understand after we've been traveling together, like me and you, we 10 years in the game into this thing.
Yeah.
And we got to ask ourselves, we've been traveling together, but do we like it? Do we like it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we've been traveling together. We've been doing this thing for a while. We've been together for a while. We've had a lot of experiences together, and we've got enough data at this point to make a informed decision on, at this point, do I like this? How many of us are in relationships, in marriages, and we're doing stuff that we don't like?
I know that happens a lot.
And I know you talked about, because one of the things that we kind of had to work through is, remember you were saying how you had this mindset of, like, I got to do my wifely duties.
Yes.
And sometimes, like, in that posture and that mindset, it became more about like, it's not just about if I enjoy it, if I like it, but he needs it.
I will say that mindset, it was hard to break that because getting ready for marriage and getting prepared for marriage and like at all the marriage conferences and whatnot, the main thing you heard addressed to women is give it up.
Right.
Like your husband's desire is going to be higher than yours. Like we're naturally assuming these things, number one. Like these are huge assumptions that your husband's needs are going to be bigger and louder and more frequent than your own. So you need to be comfortable with just giving him what he needs.
Right.
And for me, when I adopted that mindset, it created an unhealthy thing because then for me, sex was not about my desire. It wasn't about what I needed. It was more so about meeting your needs and giving you what you needed to make sure you ain't step out of the marriage or this and this and that. You know, like if you're not sleeping with your man, they gonna leave you.
And we gotta stop doing this to women.
We do.
We gotta stop creating this fear posture in relationships that if she don't do this or that man gonna leave you. A man with character is gonna do what he's supposed to do.
Come on.
If he got character, he's going to do what he's supposed to. It's like we got to stop that, and we got to stop putting all the pressure on the woman to make the sex life what it needs to be. That's just, come on, like it's a posture that we got to have. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I do think that, babe, should there be things, like if we're talking about, we're sitting in me, I'm loving this conversation, by the way. Y'all like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If we're planning this meal together, and like I said, how do we get to the point where we say we never eat alone? Well, the first thing we got to do is we got to say we set the menu.
Right.
As we're setting the menu, here's the question, and I want you to answer this honestly. And y'all comment, let me know what y'all think y'all answer this too. Should there be things on the plate that I don't like that much?
Absolutely.
Yes, it should be. Okay.
I think it should.
Why would you say that?
I think that there should be things on the plate that you don't like that much because sometimes your taste buds change as you grow. As you get older, your taste buds literally mature. There are things that I eat now that I hated as a kid. Okay.
I was thinking about that differently, but I like where you're going with that.
I think the mindset of like, I don't like this and I'm never eating it. I think that's a very immature mindset. Like, I'm going to bring up an old story. Like, so in our relationship, y'all, I like to force Ricky to try food.
Yes, she does. And it's very annoying.
Yeah, he hates it, but I still do it. He got to get over it. But I remember
when a person tells you, I don't want any, but try this. I don't want any, but come on, try it. I don't want any.
I mean, we've been married for 10 years. I don't know why you just don't give up and go ahead and bite it.
Yeah, I'm gonna just open my mouth just that's what I'm starting doing.
But no, like I remember in the beginning of our relationship, you swore almost on the Bible that you did not like jalapenos. I don't like jalapenos. They they too spicy. This and this and this and that. And I was like, okay, try this. And I think it was a potato skin, right? Or something like that. You remember. Don't be petty. Don't be petty. You remember. I think it was a potato skin, and I made him try it, and he fell in love with it. It was nachos? Or whatever it was.
They were phenomenal.
And
And that's what I'm saying, like, and sometimes you do have to allow things, immaturity. You got to allow some things that you might have a negative definition for right now. But you don't have language for it while you're together.
Right.
Like, for instance, I have to make sure as we're putting things on the plate, I can't just say, those can't go on the plate. I don't like that.
Right.
Well, what's the context behind you saying you don't like that?
Right.
Is it because you had a bad experience with it before and you swore to yourself that don't work for you? I mean, are you basing this feeling off, for instance, don't punish me for something you didn't experience with me.
Right.
Like, please don't punish me for something. It's a fly here.
It is. It's a net. And
Please don't punish me for something you didn't experience with me. And so if we're trying to put this on the menu and only you've got a definition about this certain thing that we're trying to, like, can we try this? Nope, I don't like it. Are you only basing it off of what you've been through? Or am I worth it for you to consider trying it again with us?
Right. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes when you were talking about that whole selfish mindset, when we just assume that we're not gonna like it because we've had it before.
Right, but you ain't had it with me,
But you ain't
baby.
had it with me. You ain't had it the way I make it. You don't
me.
know. I might put a little razzle-dazzle, like what Salt Bae do. I might put a little something on it that you ain't never had before.
And that's all. And that's the healing journey of God. It's like when you get to your soulmate, the one that God has called you to be with, God will restore some things.
He will.
Well, you'll be sitting there like, I didn't think I liked this, but with you, it's totally different. Like, do not abandon things you did with the wrong one now that you're with the right one. Now that you're with the right one, you should bring everything back on the table and say, now that I got the right person, every experience that was bad, that's what it was. But I'm going to try to reclaim every one of those experiences because now I got the right person I'm doing this thing with.
Right.
And now that I have the right person I'm doing this thing with, I can finally take the limits off because finally, maybe for some of us, for the first time in our lives, I'm safe to try stuff with you.
Yeah.
And once you get, the biggest level of freedom is when you get safe.
Yes.
When you feel safe, when you feel comfortable, when you a girl and you ain't got to feel conscious about how you look, when that brother love every curve, when that dude love every nook, when he love every crank, like when he like, girl, turn the lights off for what? Let me see you.
Right.
I'm not ashamed of you stretch marks, girl.
When there's no shame, when there's no fear, like when you're open to that level, it's a freedom. Free. Like, man.
You can be free, man. There's a safety in that. And things that might have been uncomfortable before, maybe at this version of you, maybe at this maturity of you, it may be totally different. It may be totally different. But we got to understand that we set the menu. And we got to understand we share the meal together. And that's maybe why more couples would eat together if they created the meal together.
Yeah. If you curated that thing.
Curate that thing together. We will ensure the meal that we share will be more rewarding when both of us had a hand in picking what's on the plate.
Yeah.
I can't just put what I want on the plate. You can't just put what you want on the plate. But both of us, it's got to be a compromise. We got to negotiate some things. We got to talk about. We actually have to be grown-ups and communicate. And I wonder how many of us actually communicate about our intimacy life. How many of us actually do? Like, one of the things that we had to learn to do is we call it discovery sessions. Like, babe, it's been a while. We need to sit where we ain't trying to rush to no finish line. We are literally in the journey and we're stopping. How does this feel? How is this?
It's almost like a Q&A session.
Is this bad? And we both have gotten to the place in our maturity where you can tell me something don't feel good and I don't feel like less of a man.
Right.
I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do to make it better? Because why? Because we're sharing a meal together.
Right. And our goal is to experience something great together.
I want both of us to get full. And that's why I also said to couples, if you are
go ahead.
If you're tired of eating the same thing, it's your fault.
I swear it's your fault.
If you are tired of eating the same thing, family, listen to me, it's your fault. Because you set the menu. And so if you're tired of the same 3 moves, at some point, somebody got to say, and I get sometimes, because is this true? Sometimes in the effort to, because this is what happened in our relationship. When we first got together, you was doing certain things that didn't really feel good, but I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And so I didn't say nothing. Remember how mad you got?
I was so angry.
He was like, why would you let me do this bad for so long and not say nothing?
And y'all, I mean, he let me do it bad for years. It won't just like a time or two. I was doing it bad for years, and he ain't say nothing to me. I personally felt offended. Like, you just gonna sit here and tolerate? Like, nobody wants to tolerate anything when it comes to your bedroom experience.
Wait, because it's nothing like when you talk to your spouse about something and you start with the statement, I've been feeling this for a minute. Like, what was you gonna tell me?
Right. I'm just over here in la la land, and you over here in pain.
And that's what we're learning. As we close down, because we got to get out of here. We've been in this conversation for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But pretty much, is it safe to say, would you agree with this? Your sexual experience will always travel at the speed of your communication. Our sexual experience will always travel at the speed of our communication. So if you have good communication, more than likely you're going to have a good sexual experience. But on the flip side of that, if you have bad communication, more than likely you're going to have a bad sexual experience. And I want to help people and I want to encourage people who may be having a bad experience. It might not be because y'all not, I don't really want you to subscribe to, or maybe we're not supposed to be together. Or I think sometimes, one of the things I think couples reach for too quick is they say, we're just not compatible.
Oh.
We're just not compatible. We're just not compatible. No, I don't think it's that y'all are not compatible. I just think y'all have poor communication. Mm-hmm. You have poor communication. And sometimes we expect things to be, sometimes we have this thing, I know it happens for me, that I've really had to work through in our marriage. Mm-hmm. That sometimes I have this immature expectation for things to be easy.
Right.
And that if it doesn't come easy, then maybe it's not supposed to be. And that could be farthest from the truth. So there's certain things, there's certain levels of our marriage that great communication has to get us to.
Right. And I don't understand why we think that our marriage and our relationships are supposed to be easy and come natural, and like that passion is just supposed to just happen.
Yeah.
When we don't put the work behind it, like we naturally associate a career with hard work. We naturally associate like a sporting or athletic goal with hard work.
That's so good.
We naturally associate all these things with hard work and dedication and drive and never giving up. But when it comes to relationships, we're like, it's just supposed to happen.
Right. It's supposed to happen. And it's not going to work like that, because how well we communicate is how well we're going to experience it. Mm-hmm. And I have to make sure I'm communicating at the right volume, and sometimes other things take my appetite away because I let them talk louder than I do. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm a man and I'm letting porn talk louder than I talk, then of course it's going to dominate my life, because I'm letting it speak loud. I'm not communicating myself. I'm letting sometimes, and I think it's a place for a lot of stuff in our relationships, like toys and different things like that. But if you're going to integrate that stuff into your intimacy life, don't let it talk louder than you do.
Right. Right.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to have that every time to get where you need to get. Like, it needs to be, like, sometimes toys and different things, none of that stuff going to fix bad communication.
It's not.
It's not going to fix bad communication.
If anything, it's just going to mask it.
It's going to mask back. And then it's going to create, if the communication is bad and the toy is still there, if it's just going to be like, I'd rather talk to this toy than talk to you, fam.
He going to roll over and you're going to hear bzzz.
And so, like, I want us to get to the place where we really learn how to have great communication in our relationship, because things happen to let us know when something is not communicated. Yeah. My body will start to act out when my mouth, my body will start to act out what my mouth refuses to say.
True. Yeah.
Your body will begin to act out what your mouth is not saying. Yeah. And so oftentimes when you find her cold to the touch, or when you find a standoffishness, the body is saying something that the mouth is not saying. Mm-hmm. Or when you're in the moment and while you may be you're there, but you're not there.
Mm-hmm. And no matter how well you think you can fake it, your spouse can pick up on that.
And in that time, it's an alarm. Your body is trying to tell, you, say something.
Right.
Say something. Communicate.
Right.
Because I think ultimately our bodies want to be pleasured.
They do.
And I think it's God's desire that we be in these relationships together and we both experience mutual pleasure. And it comes with us having the commitment that for the rest of our lives, if we're not going to do nothing else, we are never going to eat alone. We're going to eat together because we're called to be together.
Right.
Man, what a great topic today. I think we got into a lot. I hope that you guys got something from it. Let us know in the comments how this conversation is impacting you. And I'm hoping we would love to hear your comments, your questions, your experience, your thoughts, agree or disagree. We're big. We're big boy, we're big girl, we can take it, but we would love to hear your thoughts on this comment. Let's get the conversation going as we continue to go down this undefiled journey. I really want to build a community. And so we're going to be, on our social platforms. We got a Facebook group that we want y'all to be a part of and get in. And we would love to have deeper conversations about the episode. And so I want y'all to subscribe. I want y'all to leave reviews. If you're watching on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast, leave us a review, man, and help us. If here's the one favor I will ask of those of you watching, if this content is adding value to your life and you feel like it's really helping you, just do us a big favor and share it with somebody else. Yeah. Share it with somebody else because we really want to grow this community.
And we want to share the message, like, marriage and relationships is supposed to be a very freeing thing. Yeah. And so I would love for y'all to share this content, like share it with your families, spark conversation with your families and your friends or whoever it is. Like, this is something that we all need to learn to be comfortable with talking about. So don't hesitate to comment. Even if it's a topic that you're interested in that you might want us to talk about, put it in the comment section. Join the Facebook group so you can put it in one of the posts or whatnot, so we can actually have an active conversation about it.
Yeah. I'm excited about this journey. I'm excited about this podcast. I love you.
Yep.
No, I'm saying I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
Yeah. All right. I love y'all too. This is Undefiled. Until next time, we'll see y'all later.
Bye.